Every year, right before summer break, a kid at this school asks about a locker that doesn't officially exist. And every year, whoever's in charge tells them the same thing. Stay away from it. I didn't listen. This is what happened. I taught 8th grade English for 6 years at a public middle school in upstate New York. This happened during my 3rd year, the last week of school, right before summer. I still think about it every single June, and I don't think I ever fully stopped. Our building had a hallway of lockers that technically didn't exist on the official roster, a leftover row from a renovation years earlier the district never fully decommissioned. Supposed to be empty, sealed with tape, no locks issued, no students assigned. Locker 113 was in that row. The week before the last day, a quiet kid named Marcus came to me at lunch, pale, asking to switch seats because someone kept putting notes in his backpack that weren't there before. I figured a classmate was messing with him. I told him I'd keep an eye on it. End of year week is chaos for every teacher, so I let it go. 2 days later, a different student, a girl named Priya, asked me, dead serious, no smirk, why locker 113 had her name taped inside it. I told her that locker wasn't in use. She said she knew that. That's why she was asking. Someone had written Priya on a strip of masking tape and pressed it against the vent slats in handwriting that looked decades old. Faded, brittle, like it had been sitting there since before she was even born. I checked it myself after school, alone. In hindsight, that was the mistake. The tape was real. The handwriting was real, curling at the edges like old paper left in the sun. But there was no way inside that locker without a bolt cutter. It had been welded shut years back for safety. Nobody could have reached the vent slats either. They were positioned near the ceiling, higher than any student could reach without a ladder. I called our head custodian, Gerald, who'd worked there almost 30 years, and asked, half joking, if there was some story about that locker I didn't know. He didn't laugh. He got quiet the way people do right before they finally say something they've been holding on to for a long time. He told me the locker belonged to a student in the 90s who never made it to graduation. He wouldn't say exactly what happened, just that it was bad and sudden, and it happened right before summer break, same week as now. The school sealed that whole row shortly after and never spoke of it again. And every few years, always around the end of the school year, a kid comes to him asking about a note or a name taped inside that exact locker. Always the last week. Never any other time. I asked what he does when it happens. He said, I tell them to stay away from it, and I make sure I'm never in that hallway alone after the buses leave. 2 days after that, I was walking back to my classroom around 6 in the evening, later than I meant to stay, and I heard it, coming from that sealed hallway. A soft, rhythmic scratching, like fingernails dragging slowly across the inside of a metal. Steady, patient, not frantic, not panicked, deliberate, like whatever was making it had all the time in the world and had done this every June for 30 years. I did not go check it. I walked straight to my car. The last day of school, I walked past that hallway one final time before locking up for the summer. Priya's name tape was gone. In its place, pressed against the vent slats from the inside, was a single folded piece of paper. I didn't open it. I couldn't make myself. I requested a transfer that summer, away from that hallway entirely. I mentioned the paper to Gerald the following fall. He told me the hallway had been retaped and resealed over the summer, and he never went back to check what was inside. I think about that folded paper every June, right around the last week of school, and I hope, with everything in me, that nobody ever opens it. There's a door in my old high school that's supposed to be welded shut. Every year, during the exact same week, it's found propped open. I only heard why after it had already happened to me. This was rural Pennsylvania, senior year, the final week before summer break. The week the building empties out early because underclassmen get released for finals, and only seniors stick around for last exams and locker cleanout. I stayed late to clean out my locker and finish a final project in the art room, tucked at the end of a mostly empty second-floor wing. Around 4:30 p.m., most people gone. Janitorial staff hadn't started their rounds up there yet. The building had that specific empty school quiet. Not silence, but small sounds that feel too loud because there's nothing else to cover them. I was almost done packing when I heard the bell ring. Not the end-of-period buzz. This was the old bell. The long, analog ring our school used decades ago before they upgraded the system my freshman year. I knew the difference because my art teacher used to complain about how much better the old one sounded. I figured maintenance was testing something. Kept working. It rang again. Same tone, same length, exactly 60 seconds later. Too perfectly timed to be a malfunction. I stepped into the hallway. Empty. Every classroom door on that wing closed except mine. But at the far end, near the old stairwell sealed off for renovations since before I started high school, the door was propped open. It was supposed to be permanently locked. Seniors dared each other to try it every year, and it never once budged. I didn't go check it. That matters, because of what happened next. As I turned to go back into the art room, the bell rang a third time. Except this time, it didn't stop at one ring. It kept going, longer than it should. Longer than any bell system is built to run. Like something was holding the switch down on the other end. And underneath it, just barely audible beneath the ringing, I heard something that sounded almost like footsteps on the stairwell landing. Slow, deliberate, climbing. I left through the opposite stairwell and didn't look back once. The next day, I mentioned it to my art teacher, expecting her to say maintenance had been up there. She got a strange look and told me that stairwell had been sealed since a student died, falling down it back in the 80s, right at the very end of the school year, days before summer break. The old bell system had been fully removed and replaced over a decade before I ever set foot in that building. There was no way it could have physically rung. She told me, matter of fact, like she'd said it 100 times to other students over the years, that every single year, during that exact final week, someone reports hearing that same bell, always around 4:30, always at least twice, 60 seconds apart. And every year, without fail, that stairwell door is found propped open the next morning, despite being welded shut the summer before. She also said something I didn't ask her to say. She said the third ring, the long one, the one that doesn't stop, only happens to whoever's closest to the stairwell when it starts. I graduated a week later and never went back into that wing. But every June, when I hear an old bell ring on TV or in a movie, my stomach drops the exact same way it did in that empty hallway. I still don't know who or what was climbing those stairs. And I still don't know why, of everyone in that building that day, it rang the long ring for me.